All good. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another week of Confidently Flawed. Your host, Brooke and Danny, back to give you the secret sauce on weight loss, but more specifically, just how to manipulate your diet, especially in the summertime. We understand that in the summer, there's just so much that goes on. There's boat days, there's barbecues, there's pool days, there's nights out drinking, there's just so much. And while we are the first ones that want to tell you guys you need to still live your life and you need to find a healthy balance because there's so much more to life than obsessing over being so strict with your diet and workout routine. But that's why we're here. We're here to give you secret tips to help you manipulate those routines, right? So you can pivot, just like Ross from Friends says, right? We need to pivot and how to find just different ways to give yourself grace, to give yourself a better step forward after a quote unquote cheat day or after just a day, maybe you ate too much carbs, drank too much alcohol, or just need to kind of make some changes in your program in general. I know this is a topic that we hear from a lot. And that's why we just wanted to give it to you guys and hope to give you guys just some more tips to take away of how to really just manipulate your weight loss program and your diet, especially in these summer months.
And especially the summer months, just like you said, Brooke, is hello, hello.
I hear you.
All right. I mean, but I could hear myself a lot.
Oh,
Good. I feel like that happened last time too for some reason, and then it stopped.
really? Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, and especially to that last point, Brooke, during the summer is one of the hardest times for people to keep up with their health and fitness routine. And when it comes to and we're not even saying like you need to go out and try to get amazing results during the month of July or August or what have you, but if you can do a couple little tricks of the trade, if you will, so that you don't come back into September or October having to completely start over, or you've gained 10 pounds and you got to get it off plus the other 10 pounds that you wanted to lose in the first place, right? So just setting yourself up for success with little tricks that you can kind of do that I personally have done, and I've had other people do it that it's worked really well for. So, a couple of the main like motto, I guess, that I try to stick to, not only in the summer, just at any point when it comes to my health and fitness, is trying not to let too negative situations or two negative decisions happen back to back. So if I go out and I drink too much or I eat too much or, I do something that's kind of off track from my goals, I always try to make it a priority to make my next action back on track. So you don't turn into So you don't turn into one, bad habits turns into two, turns into a week, turns into 3 months, and then you're starting back over. So if you can at least make the focus of not letting your each decision turn into a bad decision and say, okay, that was not helping me towards my goals. My next thing is going to be back on track. And that could be as simple as I'm going to plan out what I'm going to eat for the next day, or it could be I'm going to get a workout in, or I'm going to go for a walk. It just gets you refocus on the thing so you don't have that spiral effect of, you know, not, focusing on your goals all of the time. And Brooke, I don't know if you do anything like that, or like what are some things maybe that you do within that parameters of trying to stay on track as best that you can. Because I know health is very important for you, and I'm sure there's times you're not perfect, right? So, like, what are things that maybe you do to help refocus your attention and all that?
Yeah, I first want to retouch on the try not to have two negatives in a row. I love that because what happens when we keep doing the negative is like we spiral out of control. And then how often do we hear that in December? I mean, I feel like that's the number one thing we hear. Like, oh, this month is just a wash because it's the holidays and every month's just going to be bad or every day just going to be bad because I've got so much going on. And then all of a sudden 30 days of bad habits is really going to set you back. And I think that number one, always giving yourself grace and knowing that like we can't be perfect. And if you have a bad day, like you can't go back and like change it, right? We can't live in the past, but like we can focus on the present right now. And the present that you're living in, you can make a better decision. And making those better decisions just feels better when you're sitting and sulking like, oh, I had pizza last night, and you just overthink of how it's going to mess you up, and then all of a sudden you're like unraveling of emotions of like how bad you feel. Just rewire your brain to feel better by doing a healthy habit. And it doesn't need to be like 100% perfect. It could literally be like, okay, I'm just going to go for a walk, and I am going to, drink a glass of water with maybe some electrolytes and some salt and some lemon, just to kind of like, flush my body of the things that I ate. And we're going to just move forward. And I think that that's huge because, again, we all make mistakes. And I don't even want to say mistakes is the right word, because it's not mistakes. We all live. We are all human. We are all like, there are things in life that we are meant to enjoy. We are meant to enjoy good food. We are meant to enjoy, alcohol, and we are meant to enjoy some of these things if that's what you want to do, because that's what brings joy to some people. And so don't get so hard on yourself for living and for being human, because I promise you, you are not, in 20 years from now, you are not going to remember the bad slip up you had. You're going to remember the memories you made. And in the summer, yeah, we make memories, right? We have boat days, we have barbecues with friends, we go out to dinner with people and maybe have a little bit too much wine, but like you laugh and you giggle and you have fun, and that's what you're going to remember. So while I'm not sitting here telling you like go enjoy everything and don't focus on your weight loss and your diet, like we have to find a happy medium. And so with that, I think it's a really, really wonderful habit to start with yourself. If you have a negative day, whether that's a negative meal, an alcoholic beverage, maybe just like not a workout in that day, start your next day fresh and start it with a positive. Do something to get you on that right track, or else you will spiral out of control. And I guarantee every single person who's listening to this knows what I mean by spiraling out of control by those bad decisions. It happens to all of us. But a way to avoid that spiral, I there's this saying that, or this image that people share a lot, and I think it has a lot to do with like more friends, but it can totally relate to this, right? Think of matches. A bunch of matches are lined up, and all of them are perfectly lined besides one match is a little bit slower, or a little bit lower than all of the other matches, and you light one, and the match is light, 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 until it gets to the match that was dropped down a little bit lower. And that means it stopped the flame. And yes, people say, like, people connect that to like friend groups, right? Like you have one person that can ruin the flame, but the same thing with a negative consequence, right? Like the spiral. If you just have one, maybe that match that was a little bit lower, let's just say that's the positive. That's the positive thing you choose to do. You're spiraling, spiraling, spiraling. The matches are lighting, 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 and you do one positive thing to stop that flame from going and burning the whole house down. Boom, there you go. You have, one positive thing to get you on track, and that's all it takes is one positive to keep you from spiraling, to get you back on track with your goals.
That's a cool analogy, Brooke. Yeah, I thought you were going a different way with it, whereas like that it's the positive and then this is the negative, and then you can just relight the next step with your positive again. You know what I mean? It's whatever route it takes you to get to keep lighting the flame, like it's effective, right? So appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's very helpful to see the visual cue, so I think in the whole spiraling thing is something I personally have done a million times over, where it's like it might not even have been that bad, but and I just like beat myself up for it, and I'm like, oh, I feel so terrible and this and that, and then my just mood is crap, instead of just saying, you know what, it is what it is, and I'm just gonna get right back on track, and make my next focus back on in action. I didn't lose all my progress in one meal or one sitting. So I think that's very helpful to do that, and have that kind of mindset of like giving yourself some grace, but also still knowing what you need to do to kind of right the ship. So I got like three like tips or things that I specifically do on a reoccurring basis that, I kind of bounce back and forth between different, times. But they're all related to like what I'm doing with my food for the most part. So you could always say, well, I'm just going to work out more so I can eat more and do the things. That's fine. Like that's something you can do. And a lot of people do that. I mean, I talked to a bunch of people here at Raw that's why that's one of the biggest reasons they come here is so they can continuously eat or drink or whatever it is and not gain the extra weight, which is fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But the other things that I do to kind of manipulate my plan, if you will, is I'll do a fast for the next day, or if I like overindulge a lot over the weekend, Mondays I'll usually fast. I won't eat until dinner, or I might do some type of protein at like 3, 4 o'clock, so I'm not like extremely starving when I go into my meal at dinner, and then I have my dinner. So I lessen my calories. I do some fasting, which has a bunch of different benefits, which we won't dive into today, but it's just very helpful for me to just kind of reset and almost challenge myself, right? So instead of, just overindulging all the time or do this, because that's my thing is I tend to overindulge, is changing my mindset to like, well, now I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to do something physically hard, like fasting for 24 hours, because it just kind of gets me back in the mindset, gets me back refocused and all that. So it's very helpful for me. So fasting the next day by, going essentially 24 hours without eating. So I'll have my last meal on Sunday night, and then I won't eat again till 3, 4 o'clock. Usually I'll have a little protein, and then I will have my normal dinner, and then that's it. And then I go back in my normal routine Tuesday. It works pretty well for me. The second thing is I will do on that specific day, that I overindulge or whatever my, for lack of a better word, hiccup is I will do like a lower calorie and like a lower like macro day, meaning I'll just pretty much stick to protein and veggies for most of the day, because I know I'm probably gonna have drinks, or I'm gonna indulge in sweets, or I'm gonna indulge in extra carbs or fats or whatever that is. So instead of getting my other macros, meaning carbs and fats, throughout the day, more balanced, which is better, yes, I just get them in for like later in the evening, and I just don't have them earlier. So if I know I'm going to have 2 drinks, I cut out 2 carbs for the day, for example, and that can work relatively well for me. And then kind of along the same lines of that is I'll do like some form of carb cycling sometimes, where I'll have days that I work out and I'll bump my carbs up, and then days that I don't work out, I'll bump my carbs and my calories down. And that tends to work with just how I'm going about my day. So on those days that I know I'm susceptible, or I'm going to an event that I want to, and notice I'm planning these, right? Like obviously these are going to happen just like randomly too, but like where the fasting the next day, it can be more like, oh shoot, I messed up, let me try to fix it now. That's not as advantageous as planning these out. So if I go into it and I'm like, all right, Saturday I got, my buddy was just in town a couple weeks ago from Arizona, and I knew Friday we were going to get together, probably have some drinks, probably go to the restaurant, like all these different things. So I planned it into my schedule that I made sure I got a workout in that morning. I ate light and just a bunch of protein throughout the day, so that when I came into later in the day, it wasn't as detrimental as eating a bunch of food, doing all these things, not working out, where my body can't handle the excess load, if you will, there. So I'll plan in carb cycling if I'm doing that, where I'll do the high carb and high calories on days I work out, lower carb, low calories on days I don't, or at the very least, just do it on that specific day if you plan those out. And the kind of like bonus one that kind of goes along with that is sometimes I'll just plan out refeed days, usually once a week, to maintain my muscle mass. I'll just eat over my caloric intake or my caloric burn for a given day. And there's some hormonal benefits to doing that. So there's actually benefits to you doing that. And I'll just choose to do it on those days. And then I get right back on track the next day and make my next action back on track. So those are kind of the things that have worked for me during the especially during the times like summer, is, I'll do the fasting the next day. The day of an event, I'll do low carb, low calorie, kind of carb loading ish. On Well, those are, I guess those are 2 different things. So I'll either do low calorie with low carbs on that day so I can overindulge then, and I'll try to work out that day, or I'll just plan it as a higher carb, higher calorie day and still also work out on that day. So, I would always try to work out on those days that you're going to, or get out for a walk or do something movement wise so it's not as detrimental.
Yeah. I love all those tips. I think movement is key as well. I mean, and again, it doesn't have to be, I got to go to the gym and, you wake up hungover and feel like absolute doggy doo-doo and you're like, I just do not feel like getting to the gym. Go out and go for a walk. We have a whole episode on walking and the benefits of walking. There's so many more benefits than just actually the movement. The fresh air, the sun, the vitamin D, like grounding, take your shoes off, like there's so many beautiful benefits to that. So I agree with that. I have a couple tips as well, but I'm going to kind of take a different route than Danny. I think Danny kind of shared some tips of like food and diet and how to kind of manipulate your diet in the realm of weight loss things. I kind of want to teach you how to manipulate your diet for the realm of getting you out of the spiral. Because I think that listeners, take a minute and just think about after a bad day of eating. After a bad day of eating, after a bad day of drinking, like you feel like crap mentally, physically, emotionally, all of it. And we tend to feed off of those emotions. Like when we feel like crap, when you're hungover, like all you want to do is like eat crappy food. And I don't know about you guys, but like I get food hangovers. When I eat crappy food, I feel like I'm hungover from that food. And so I want to share some tips in the realm of like getting you out of that. And one of the reasons why we feel that way is because our brain and our gut are directly connected. And what messes with our gut? Bad food, alcohol, basically poisons. And alcohol is a poison. Toxic foods can be a poison. There's a lot of really unhealthy ingredients in a lot of these bad foods. And so when our gut balance, when our microbiome, when really our body is inflamed, I mean, we are generally inflamed when we eat like crap. I mean, I can notice a difference after I have a night of drinking or eating pizza or whatever. Like my face is the first thing to swell. My husband can literally tell me like, oh yeah, like you could, like my face gets swollen. That's called inflammation. And so my tips for you is try to eat an anti-inflammatory diet the following day of going out. Most anti-inflammatory diets include limiting dairy, limiting carbohydrates, limiting, believe it or not, pretty raw vegetables. So like raw carrots, raw broccoli, like that is really hard for our body to digest. And basically we just want to support the gut. So good quality foods to support the gut, things like yogurt. And I know I said no dairy, but yogurt is supportive of the gut. Things like sauerkraut, good probiotic rich foods, basically foods that are going to feed the gut, that's going to give it positive, like versus adding to that inflammation. And then other ways to get rid of inflammation as well, trying to have a bowel movement, drinking electrolyte and salt water to flush your body of the junk, getting outside, grounding is really anti-inflammatory, like trying to reduce that inflammation, because when we are inflamed, it messes with our head. And when our head is feeling down, when our head is feeling annoyed with us for having a bad day, when you feel like blah, it's harder for you to have that positive choice. You want to have two negatives in a row because you start to spiral. So if you can support your inflammation, if you can support your gut to where it supports your mind and supports your brain, then you'd actually be amazed at how that's going to make you feel better. I remember way back when I got into cold plunging, and I was drinking still, and I was hungover one day, and I read somewhere like cold plunge a morning after drinking, you will be amazed. Like, and I woke up hungover, I woke up feeling like garbage, and I did my cold plunge, and like I was revived, like I had a new day, and I was ready to order pizza, like I was ready to eat like crap because I felt like crap. I went in the cold plunge because cold plunging is very anti-inflammatory. It really helps with inflammation in the body. And I felt so much better. And that's when I really started realizing like what a difference inflammation makes. So trying to do things that reduce the inflammation to help your mind get forward to moving more positive than staying in the negative.
I don't got anything else. I don't know if you want, maybe we just
Okay.
wrap it up here.
Yeah,
So especially if
I'll
I'm
wrap
going
it
to be
up.
talking the next couple.
Okay. So hopefully that was helpful for you guys. Two kind of different perspectives, but lots of great tips for you guys. Again, we are not here to tell you that you can't enjoy life. Please enjoy life. Please do the fun things. Again, that's what you're going to remember. But please, please, please don't get down on yourself. Don't feel bad. Remember, it's in the past. All we do is focus on moving forward and how we can continue those positive steps, because way more positive steps is going to be more beneficial than a few negative steps. I promise you that. So if you got value from this episode, if you could share it, if you could give us a rating and review, we would really, really appreciate that. And until that, we will see you guys next week for another episode of Confidently Flawed.